The elevator jolts, and suddenly I'm trapped with the woman who destroyed me. 3 years, 3 years, since Mia Hawthorne walked out of my life without explanation, leaving me standing in our shared apartment with half-packed boxes and questions that still keep me awake at night. 3 years of therapy sessions, failed dates, and convincing myself I'd moved on. I hadn't. The autumn wind rattled the windows of the Meridian Tower as I stepped into the elevator on the 42nd floor, fresh from a client meeting that had run longer than expected. The building hummed with its usual late-evening energy security guards making rounds, cleaning crews preparing for the night shift, the distant echo of footsteps in marble corridors. I pressed the button for the lobby, already mentally rehearsing my evening routine, take out from the Thai place around the corner, maybe catch up on emails, definitely avoid thinking about the anniversary that was coming up next week. The doors began to slide shut. "Hold that, please." My finger froze over the door close button. That voice, soft, musical, with just a hint of breathlessness from running. A voice I'd heard in dreams and nightmares for 3 years. Mia slipped through the narrowing gap between the doors, her dark hair catching the overhead light. She wore a charcoal blazer I didn't recognize and carried a leather portfolio that looked expensive, professional, put together, everything she'd been working toward when she left. "Thank you," she said, not looking at me directly. "Lobby." I nodded, unable to find words. The button was already lit. She positioned herself in the opposite corner, as far from me as the small space allowed. The tension was immediate and suffocating. I focused on the descending floor numbers, willing them to move faster, 41, 40, 30-9. Then the lights flickered, the elevator shuddered, a metallic groan echoing through the shaft. We lurched to a stop between floors, the sudden jolt throwing Mia forward slightly. She caught herself against the handrail, her knuckles white. "What just happened?" she asked, pressing the lobby button repeatedly. "Nothing." She tried the door open button. Still nothing. I reached past her, careful not to let our arms touch, pressed the emergency call button. A crackling voice filled the small space. "Meridian. Tower security, this is Marcus." "We're stuck in elevator 3, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Between floors?" "Copy that. We're experiencing a building-wide electrical issue. Maintenance is on it, but it might be 20 to 30 minutes before we can get you out." "You folks okay in there?" I looked at Mia. She'd gone pale, her breathing shallow. Confined spaces had always made her nervous. "We're fine," I lied. "Sit tight. We'll have you out soon." The intercom went silent. 20 to 30 minutes, trapped in a space barely larger than a phone booth, with the woman who'd shattered my world. I could already feel my chest tightening. That familiar panic that came whenever I thought about her too long. Mia had moved to the back corner, sliding down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. She'd pulled her knees to her chest, a position I remembered from college when she'd get overwhelmed during finals week. Some habits never changed. "This is just perfect," she whispered, more to herself than to me. I remained standing, arms crossed, trying to maintain some semblance of control. The mirrored walls multiplied our reflections into infinity, an endless loop of two people who'd once shared everything and now couldn't even look at each other directly. The jasmine. That's when I noticed it. Her perfume, the same one she'd worn since college, it filled the small space, triggering a flood of memories I'd spent 3 years trying to suppress. Late nights, studying together in the library, morning coffee in our tiny kitchen, the way she'd curl up against me during thunderstorms, her hair smelling like jasmine and rain. I pressed my back against the cold metal wall, trying to put as much distance between us as possible. but there was nowhere to go, nowhere to run from. The past that was suddenly very present, very real, sitting 3 feet away from me in a broken elevator. Mia looked up at me then, her green eyes holding something I couldn't quite read. Regret? Fear? Noah, she said quietly, I don't. Word came out sharper than I intended. Just don't. She flinched, as if I'd slapped her. Good. Maybe now she'd understand how it felt to be cut off mid-sentence. To have words stolen before they could be spoken. The elevator creaked softly around us, settling into its temporary prison. Chicago continued its evening rhythm, oblivious to the fact that my carefully constructed life had just been turned upside down by a simple, mechanical failure. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. 20 to 30 minutes? I could survive 20 to 30 minutes, couldn't I? 5 minutes passed in absolute silence. 5 minutes of pretending the other person didn't exist while trapped in a metal box that seemed to shrink with each breath. I kept my eyes fixed on the floor numbers, frozen between 38 and 39, as if staring at them hard enough might make the elevator lurch back to life. Mia shifted against the wall, her portfolio rustling as she adjusted her position. The sound was magnified in our confined space, each movement a reminder of her presence. She cleared her throat softly. So, she said, her voice tentative, how have you been? I almost laughed. How had I been? How did someone answer that question when posed by the person who'd left them questioning everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and their own worth? Really? I said, finally looking at her. We're doing small talk now? She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, nervous habit I remembered too well. I just thought, what? That we'd catch up like old friends? Swap stories about the weather? And our weekend plans? No, She stopped, took a breath. You're right, this is weird. Weird. That was one word for it. I saw your name in the Chicago Tribune last month, she continued, apparently determined to push through the awkwardness. The article about the Morrison Community Center renovation. That's exactly the kind of project you always talked about doing. My chest tightened. She'd been keeping tabs on me, reading about my work, my life, while I'd spent 3 years trying to forget she existed. Yeah, well, I said, life goes on. It looks like you're doing really well. The firm is growing, right? I heard you made partner last year. From who? The question hung between us. She bit her lower lip, another tell I wished I'd forgotten. Lana mentioned it when I ran into her at that gallery opening downtown. Alana, our mutual friend from college, the one person who'd tried to play mediator after Mia left. The one person who'd refused to pick sides and still sent me updates about Mia's life that I pretended not to want. Oh, you two still talk. It wasn't a question. Sometimes, not often. Mia hugged her knees tighter. She worries about both of us, you know. Says we're both too stubborn for our own good. Lana says a lot of things. Another silence stretched between us. But this one felt different. Charged, like the air before a storm, when you can feel the electricity building in the clouds. I never meant for it to end the way it did, Mia said quietly. There it was. Acknowledgement I'd waited 3 years to hear, and it hit me like a physical blow. But it did end that way, I said. You packed your things, left a note, and disappeared. No explanation. No conversation, just ... gone. I know, do you? Because I spent months wondering what I'd done wrong. Was I too clingy, not supportive? Enough. Did I say something? Forget something important? Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't stop. 3 years of suppressed anger was finally finding its voice. I called your sister. Did you know that? 2 weeks after you left, I called Emma because I was so desperate to understand. She wouldn't tell me anything. Just said it was complicated and that I should give you space. Noah, No. You wanted to talk? Let's talk. Do you know what it's like to have someone you love just vanish from your life? To wake up every morning for months, expecting them to walk back through the door with some explanation that makes sense? Of everything. The tears were falling freely now, tracking down her cheeks in the harsh overhead light. But I couldn't stop. Right. The words I'd held back for years were pouring out of me. I waited, I said. Like an idiot, I waited. I kept your coffee mug in the cabinet, left your books on the nightstand. I even paid your half of the rent for 2 months because I thought maybe you were just taking a break, working through something, and you'd come back. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of my life, Mia. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. She was silent for a long moment, her face buried in her hands. When she finally looked up, her expression had changed. The tentative hopefulness from earlier was gone, replaced by something harder. More resolved. You'd think I wanted to leave? She said, her voice stronger now. You think it was easy for me to walk away from the best thing in my life? I don't know what to think. You never gave me the chance to understand, because you couldn't. Understand, not then. Try me. She stared at me for a long moment, weighing something in her mind. The elevator suddenly felt even smaller, the air thicker. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped too barely above a whisper.
My father isn't who you think he is. I frowned. What does your father have to do with anything? Everything. She wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to hold something in. The night before I left, he came to see me. Told me things about his business, about the people he works with. Things that could hurt you, Noah. Things that could destroy your career before it even started. My mind raced. Richard Hawthorne was a successful businessman, owned several restaurants downtown. I'd met him a handful of times, found him charming, if slightly intimidating. What could he possibly have told Mia that would make her leave? He made it clear that staying with you would put you in danger. She continued, that people don't just walk away from certain kinds of arrangements. That loving me came with consequences I couldn't ask you to face. What kind of arrangements? She shook her head. The less you know, the safer you are. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is. Her voice was fierce now, protective. You were about to graduate, start your internship at Morrison and Associates. You had your whole future mapped out. I wasn't going to let my family's mistakes ruin that. The pieces weren't clicking together, but I could feel something massive shifting beneath the surface of what she was telling me. Something that recontextualized everything I thought I knew about why she'd left. So, you decided for both of us, I said. You decided I couldn't handle whatever truth you were carrying. I decided to protect you by breaking my heart. She flinched. By saving your life. The words hit me like a slap. Saving my life? What kind of family secrets were worth destroying a relationship over? What kind of danger had she been protecting me from? The elevator gave a small shudder, and for a moment, I thought we might be moving again. But the floor numbers remained frozen, and the silence returned, heavier than before. Mia was staring at me now, her green eyes intense and desperate, as if she was trying to communicate something she couldn't say aloud. When she spoke again, her voice was so quiet I had to lean forward to hear her. This changes everything. What changes everything? I demanded, my voice echoing off the metal walls. You can't just drop cryptic hints about saving my life and expect me to. My father launders money for the Torino family. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding her breath for 3 years and finally exhaled. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. What? His restaurants, the real estate investments, the art gallery, downtown, it's all fronts. He washes dirty money through legitimate businesses. Her voice cracked. I found out the night before I left you. He told me because they wanted to expand operations, needed someone with a clean record to help manage the books. Someone like, the Torino family. Even I knew that name from the news, organized crime, federal investigations, people who disappeared when they became inconvenient. My legs felt weak. He wanted you to join the family business? Her laugh was bitter. Literally. Said it was time I stopped pretending to be something I wasn't and embraced what I was born to be. I slumped against the wall, the full weight of her revelation hitting me. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have tried to save me. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. You would have gone to the police, or confronted my father, or done something noble and stupid that would have gotten you killed. The mirrored walls showed infinite versions of us, fractured, reflected, multiplied into a kaleidoscope of broken images. Each reflection looked more distorted than the last, like our relationship had been. I was 22 years old, she continued, her voice gaining strength. I thought I was protecting you by disappearing. I thought if I just vanished, you'd move on and be safe. Safe from what, exactly? From them? From him. From me. She pulled her knees closer to her chest. Do you know what it's like to discover that everything you thought you knew about your family is a lie? That your college tuition, your car, your entire life was paid for with blood money? I couldn't speak. The woman I loved, the woman I'd planned to propose to, had been living with this secret, carrying this burden alone. I spent weeks after. He told me, just staring at myself in the mirror, trying to figure out who I really was. Was I my father's daughter? Was I complicit just by existing in his world? Could I ever be clean of it, Mia? And the worst part? Her voice broke completely. Now, tears streaming down her face. The absolute worst part was that I loved you too much to drag you into it. You were so pure, Noah. So hopeful about the future, about building something good and meaningful. How could I contaminate that with my family's poison? I wanted to reach. For her, every instinct I had screamed to close the distance between us, to hold her while she fell apart. But 3 years of hurt held me back. So you decided I was too weak to handle the truth? No, I decided you were too good for it, too good for me. That wasn't your choice to make. It was the only choice I could live with. She stood up abruptly, pacing the small space like a caged animal. Do you think it was easy? Do you think I didn't die a little bit every day for 3 years, wondering if you were okay, if you hated me, if you'd found someone else? You could have called. You could have explained and said what? Hi, Noah. Sorry, I disappeared, but my dad's a criminal and I might be next. You would have come running, and they would have seen you as a threat. Her face went pale. My father's associates? They don't like loose ends. They don't like people who know too much and aren't family. The elevator suddenly felt colder. I thought about all the nights I'd wondered where she was, if she was safe. Never knowing she was protecting me from dangers I couldn't have imagined. After I left, I moved to Portland, she said quietly. Started over. Got a job at a small accounting firm, kept my head down. I thought if I stayed away long enough, if I proved I wasn't a threat, maybe they'd forget about me. And did they? For a while? But family business is family business. Last month, my father had a heart attack. The doctors say he needs to step back, reduce stress. Guess who he wants to call home to help run things? My stomach dropped. That's why you're back in Chicago. She nodded. I'd been putting him off for weeks, but I can't avoid him forever. Tonight was supposed to be a meeting with his lawyers to discuss my inheritance and my responsibilities to the family, the portfolio. I said, looking at the leather case she dropped when the elevator stopped. Documents I was supposed to sign, agreements that would make me an official part of the organization. She kicked it with her foot. I couldn't do it. I sat in a conference room for 10 minutes, then grabbed the papers and ran. We stared at each other across the small space, the weight of 3 years of misunderstanding settling between us like fog. All this time, I thought she'd left because she didn't love me enough to stay. The truth was the opposite. She'd left because she loved me too much to put me in danger. But knowing the truth didn't erase the pain, didn't undo the damage. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I'm so sorry. I looked at her reflection in the mirror, wall distorted, fractured into a dozen different angles. Just like us. Just like everything we'd once been taught, my heart was at war with itself. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her I understood that we could figure this out together. But another part, the part that had spent 3 years in therapy, learning to trust again, learning to believe I was worthy of love, that part was furious. Furious that she'd made the decision alone. Furious that she thought so little of my strength, my ability to handle difficult truths. Furious that she'd let me spend years thinking I wasn't enough. Noah, she said softly, please say something. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. The elevator chose that moment to shudder again, the lights flickering briefly before stabilizing. What was I supposed to say? That I forgave her? That I understood? That 3 years of rebuilding myself from the ground up could be erased by an explanation, however heartbreaking. I didn't know. For the first time since the doors had closed, trapping us together, I genuinely didn't know what came next. The silence stretched between us until I couldn't bear it anymore. When I finally spoke, my voice was rougher than I intended. You want to know what's funny? I said, sliding down the wall until I was sitting across from her. For 3 years, I convinced myself that I wasn't enough, that I'd failed you somehow. Mia's eyes widened. Noah, let me finish. The words came slowly, each one carefully chosen. I went to therapy. Did you know that? Spent 2 years sitting in Dr. Martinez's office, dissecting every conversation we'd ever had, every moment where I might have fallen short. She covered her face with her hands, but I continued. I analyzed everything. The way I'd supported your career, the way I'd talked about our future, even the way I'd kissed you goodbye. That last morning, I was convinced that if I could just figure out what I'd done wrong, I could fix myself, become worthy of being loved. You were always worthy, was I? Because the woman I loved looked at me and decided I couldn't handle her truth. Decided. I was too fragile, too naive to be trusted with the hard parts of her life. The accusation hung between us like a physical thing. Mia flinched as if I'd struck her. That's not fair, she whispered. Isn't it? I leaned forward, forcing her to meet my eyes. You made a unilateral decision about our relationship based on what you thought I could handle. You took away my choice, my agency, my right to decide what risks I was willing to take. For love, I was trying to protect you. And I was trying to love you. All of you, including the messy, complicated, dangerous parts. But you didn't give me that chance. She was crying again, but I couldn't stop. 3 years of buried pain was finally finding its voice. Do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the heartbreak. It wasn't even the confusion. It was the way you made me doubt my own instincts. I knew something was wrong in those last weeks before you left. I could feel you pulling away, see the fear in your eyes. But every time I asked, you told me everything was fine. I didn't want to worry you. You made me think I was paranoid. Made me question whether I even knew you at all. I ran my hands through my hair, feeling the weight of those memories. After you left, I couldn't trust my own judgment. If I'd been so wrong about you, about us, how could I trust anything I felt? The elevator shuddered again, a mechanical sigh that seemed to echo our exhaustion. It took me 2 years to date anyone else, I continued. 2 years before I could even consider trusting someone with my heart again. And even then, it didn't work. Because I kept waiting for them to leave. Kept looking for signs that they were hiding something, playing their escape. I'm sorry, she said, the words barely audible. I know you are. And I know you thought you were doing the right thing. But you destroyed more than just our relationship. Mia, you destroyed my ability to believe in love, in partnership, in the idea that two people could face anything together. She lifted her head, her green eyes red-rimmed and searching. Did you ... did you ever love anyone else? The question caught me off guard. I studied her face, looking for the motivation behind it. Jealousy? Hope? Simple curiosity? I tried, I said, honestly. There was someone last year, Jennifer. She was kind, patient, everything I thought I needed. But, But, I took a shaky breath. But she wasn't you. The admission hung between us like a bridge neither of us was sure we could cross. Mia's eyes filled with fresh tears. Even after everything I put you through? Even after everything? I laughed bitterly. Pathetic, right? 3 years of therapy, of rebuilding myself, of learning to be whole without you. And I still still love you. The words came out like a confession. God help me, I still love you. Not the idealized version I created in my head. Not the memory I'd polished until it was perfect. The real you. The complicated, stubborn, self-sacrificing woman who thought she could protect me by breaking both our hearts. Mia's sob echoed off the metal walls. I never stopped loving you either. Then why didn't you come back? If you loved me, if you missed me, why didn't you try to find another way? Because I was scared, she said, her voice raw with honesty. Because every time I thought about reaching out, I remembered my father's words. About consequences. About people who ask too many questions. And now? She looked down at the portfolio of documents beside her. Now he's dying, and the people he works with want me to take his place. They've made it clear that running away isn't an option anymore. Before I could respond, the intercom crackled to life again. No? Mia? It's Lana. We both froze. Lana's voice, warm and familiar, filled the small space. I know you're both in. There. Marcus told me about the elevator situation, and when he mentioned the names, well, I had to come down here. I looked at Mia, seeing my own confusion reflected in her expression. Lana, I called out. How did you... I was in the building for a client meeting when the power went out. And before you ask, yes, I know about the Torino situation. Mia told. Me last month when she came back to Chicago. Mia's face went pale. Lana, you shouldn't let. Care about my two best friends who've been miserable for 3 years because they're both too stubborn to have an honest conversation. The intercom fell silent for a moment, then Lana's voice returned, softer now. I've watched you both try to move on. Noah, you threw yourself into work so hard that you forgot how to live. And Mia, you've been running from your problems for so long you've forgotten what it feels like to stand still. It's not that simple, I started. Yes, it is. Lana interrupted. It's exactly that simple. You love each other? You've always loved each other. And right now, you're trapped in a metal box, forced to confront the truth you've both been avoiding. The truth is complicated, Mia said, weakly. The truth is that you're scared, Lana replied. Both of you. Noah, you're scared of being hurt. Again, Mia, you're scared of putting the people you love in danger. But fear isn't a good enough reason to waste the rest of your lives. The elevator groaned softly around us, as if agreeing with Lana's assessment. Look, Lana continued, I don't know much about organized crime or family obligations or any of that mess, but I know that you two were happier together than either of you has been apart. And I know that running away from your problems never actually solved them. I found myself looking at Mia, really looking at her for the first time since we'd been trapped together. She looked older, more worn down by life than the woman who'd left me 3 years ago, but she was still beautiful, still the person who'd made me believe in forever. The maintenance crew says they'll have you out in another 10 minutes, Lana said. 10 minutes to decide whether you're going to keep running from each other or finally face this thing together. The intercom went quiet, leaving us alone with the weight of her words. Mia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She always did have terrible timing. Actually, I said, surprising myself with a small smile, I think her timing might be perfect. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything we'd said settling around us like dust after an explosion. The elevator felt different now, not like a prison, but like a sanctuary where we'd finally been forced to tell the truth. Noah, Mia said softly, what happens when those doors open? It was the question I'd been avoiding, the one that made my chest tight with possibility and terror in equal measure. When we walked out of here, back into the world, Would we go our separate ways again? Would this conversation become just another painful memory to file away? I don't know, I admitted. A few hours ago, I thought I'd never see you again. Now, ... Now, you know why I left? Now I know why you left. I agreed. But knowing doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't fix the damage. She nodded, fresh tears threatening. I know, but it does change things. I shifted closer, not quite reaching for her, but closing some of the distance we'd maintained. It changes how I see you, how I see us. Oh. I thought about it, trying to find words for feelings I was still processing. For 3 years, I thought you left because I wasn't enough. Because you looked at our future together and decided it wasn't worth fighting for. But you didn't leave because you stopped loving me. You left because you loved me too much. That doesn't make it right. No, I said. It doesn't. You still made that choice without me. You still decided what I could and couldn't handle. But it makes it ... forgivable. The word hung between us like a lifeline. Does it? She whispered. Before I could answer, the elevator suddenly lurched. Not the gentle shudder we'd grown accustomed to, but a real movement. The lights flickered once, then stabilized, brighter than before. The floor numbers began to move. 30-8, 37, 36. We're moving, Mia said, scrambling. To her feet, I stood too, my heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the mechanical resurrection of our temporary prison. We were about to be free, about to step back into the real world where Mia's father was still dying, where dangerous people still wanted her cooperation, where I still had a life carefully constructed to function without her. 30-5, 34, 33. The portfolio, I said, nodding toward the leather case she'd kicked aside earlier. She looked at it like it was a snake. I can't sign those papers, Noah. I won't become part of his world. Then don't. It's not that simple. These people don't take no for an answer. Then we'll figure out another way. The word we slipped out before I could stop it. Mia's eyes widened. 32, 31, 30 got time was running out. Whatever we were going to decide, we had to decide it now. I meant what I said. I told her, I still love you. Not the version of you I created in my head, not the memory I've been carrying around. The real you. The woman who makes impossible choices trying to protect the people she cares about, even knowing what loving me might cost. I thought about it. Really thought about it. The danger, the complications, the risk of having my heart broken again. 3 years ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, older and more aware of how much pain love could cause, the answer was more complex. But it was still yes. I'd rather live one day loving you completely than spend the rest of my life playing it safe, I said. But this time, we do it differently. No more unilateral decisions. No more protecting each other by lying or leaving. If we're going to face whatever comes next, we face it together. 29, 28, 20-7. Mia was crying again. But these tears looked different. Hopeful, maybe. I don't know how. To do that, she admitted, I've been running for so long I don't remember how to stand still. Then we'll learn together. 26, 25, 20-4. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume again. But this time, instead of triggering painful memories, it felt like coming home. What if I can't break free from my father's world? What if they won't let me go? Then we'll find a way to make them let you go. There are lawyers who specialize in this kind of thing. Federal programs. We'll figure it out. And if we can't, I reached out, finally closing the last bit of distance between us and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but they curled around mine like they remembered how to fit together. Then we'll face whatever comes next together. But no more running, Mia, no more disappearing. Promise me that. 23, 22, 21. I promise, she whispered. The elevator was slowing now, approaching the lobby. Through the doors, I could hear voices, maintenance, workers, security guards, probably Lana waiting to see if her intervention had worked. This is terrifying, Mia said. Yeah, I agreed. It is. But we were still holding hands. 20, 19, 18. I don't know what happens next, she said. Neither do I, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to have it all figured out right now. 17, 16, 15. The elevator shuddered to a stop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the familiar ding echoed through the small space, and the doors began to slide open. Light flooded in from the lobby bright, artificial, full of people and noise and the complications of the real world. But Mia didn't let go of my hand, and I didn't let go of hers. Ready? I asked. She looked at me, and for the first time in hours she smiled. It was tentative, fragile, but real. No, she said. But let's do it anyway. The doors opened completely, revealing Lana's concerned face and a small crowd of building personnel. But none of them mattered. What mattered was that we stepped out, together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Not because we had all the answers, but because we'd finally learned the right questions to ask.